In this video, you're going to learn how to add an envelope to your objects, and what it'll do is change their shape. So what we'll do to get started, I'm just going to select Step from my object properties and choose the Digitize tool, and we'll just give it a stitch angle, and then I'll type S on my keyboard so that I can insert a rectangular shape, and just click and drag to draw a rectangle, right click to complete the shape, and right click to finish making it and let go. And so yeah, we have one rectangle, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy it and then paste and make 3 copies of the same rectangle. And the reason I made 3 copies of it is just looking at the object properties for the step objects, there's under styles and patterns it says envelope on, and here you can choose between 3 choices: outline, stitches, and direction. So what I want to do is I want to show how that affects the 3 different rectangles. So what we'll do, we'll start by selecting the first rectangle, and to add an envelope you right click to get your second menu and choose add and then envelope. And what that does is opens up this small window, which is where you select the envelope shape. Now, there's general sections: simple, complex, on direction, and manual. And there's like a predetermined list of simple shapes. The simple ones are going to be based upon a series of 16 points, little blocks that all fit together. And so depending on which one you select will, I guess, change the shape of those 16 blocks, and that's how it affects the shape of your embroidery. Now, the simple ones are based on 16. The complex ones will be based upon like double the set, so it'll be like 16 on one half and 16 on the other, giving you the ability to do effects like this. So yeah, you can scroll through and select whatever, I guess, envelope you want and apply it. Now I'll show the on direction and manual one a little later in this video, so for now I'll just select, for example, this one. And one more thing you choose in here is the value, and basically sliding this will either add more or less of that particular style of envelope, or I guess distortion, to the shape. So once you're happy and you've selected that, you say OK. And so you'll see what's happened now on the rectangle is we have, I'll just click to let go, applied this envelope shape to the outline of this object. And so for outline, it simply affects the shape of it, but not the stitches inside of it. And so what we'll do is we'll select the second rectangle and change it from outline to stitches, and then right click to add an envelope, and we'll go with the same kind of wavy envelope that we had for the previous one. I think I turned it up to 32 or whatever it was, and say OK. And so if I let go, now you'll see that not only has the shape been changed, but so have the stitches inside of the shape. And so that's the difference. Now, the third choice is called direction, and that one will affect not the outline and only the stitches. So we'll change this one to be direction, and right click and choose add envelope, and we'll go with the same envelope for all 3, and I'll just tweak up the value just so they all kind of look the same. And so there is the difference. Okay, so the third one is called direction, and you'll notice that the envelope has affected the stitching inside of our rectangle, but not affected the shape. And so stitches will affect the shape and the stitches, and outline will only affect the shape. So those are your 3 choices for an envelope. Now I'm just going to reset myself and continue to show you how you can, I guess, manipulate these envelopes and apply them onto different types of shapes. Okay, I'm going to continue looking at creating and editing envelopes, and the next thing I want to show you is this. If I click on an object that has an envelope and then right click, I also have the ability to choose edit envelope or delete envelope. So if you want to change the way that you envelope something, maybe change the value or change the actual shape that you're using in your envelope, then you can choose that, and that will give you, an updated envelope. So you can create the envelopes yourself in that manner. What I'll do here, I'm just going to copy and paste so that I get a second copy of this one, and show you that if I right click and choose delete envelope, then it's going to take me right back to the original rectangle that we started with without any enveloped stitching. Now, maybe what we'll do on this, I want to show you how you can use the shape of the envelope. You can change the shape basically and enhance it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this rectangle that we've got, and the envelope is on direction, so that's fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and say add envelope, and we'll just start with a simple envelope that has no real shape. It's just a rectangle, so it won't actually change the shape of my rectangle at all. It will just give me an envelope sort of set of points on it. And so you can see here that basically we have my envelope. My object is not really changed. Now, that's not true because the envelope was on direction, and so what did change is, if I zoom in more closely, you'll see if I hit undo that originally the stitches was on an angle, and so because I applied that rectangular envelope over top of this rectangle, and I'll say redo, it enveloped the stitches to go in with the shape of the rectangle, which is fine. Now, what I wanted to show you about this is, I'm just going to select this. If I go, so right now we're on the selection tool for sort of regular transformations, but I also have the ability to change to edit nodes. And so I'll go ahead and click on that. And what happens with edit nodes is it actually changes before. Normally with edit nodes, you have the shape nodes that were used to create your rectangle. And maybe an angle line or something. But now what we have is the shape points of our envelope. And you'll see that as I highlight over them, they become selectable. I can move them if I want, and therefore change the shape of the envelope. And remember, right now I have it set on direction, so it's meant to only sort of affect the stitches, which is fine. So just as an example of editing the stitches like that, I'm going to take this inside shape point and pull it down here, and then take this other inside point and pull it up here. So I've kind of made them overlap. But look what that's done to the way the stitching sews through the center of this design. Is it's created kind of a bit of a convex to it. If I did both ones, it might be a little more pronounced. And then maybe I'll just turn on the realistic preview so you get an idea of what I've done. So using those control points is your ability to actually change the shape of your stitches or of your envelope. So maybe another example would be I'll just paste that rectangle again and then drag it down to create a new one, and we'll just delete the envelope that's in it right now. And I'm going to add an envelope on add an envelope on stitches. So we'll say add envelope, and we'll go with something like this kind of hourglass shape. So you get the idea that it changes the stitches as well as the shape of it. Now, part of what I want to show you here is it edits the stitches, or it enhances the stitches, but I can also enhance the stitches a little bit by changing their original stitch angle, which was on an angle. And so part of what you can do here, when you right click, I have to change it to that node. When I right click now, I get your sort of standard, add, you can add another sort of vector fill to it, or block fill, or something else, or delete or edit the envelope. What I want to do now is actually want to go to the node editor so that I can see those control points, which I could use to, I guess, change the shape of the envelope. If I wanted to, I could move these points around. But more specifically, what I wanted to show was if I right click at this point, I also have the ability to edit the original shape. So that takes us back to editing the original rectangle, which would also give me the ability to change the original stitch angle of the stitches. And so notice when I change the original stitch angle from what it was on sort of a 45-degree slant or 25 or something, and brought it down to be more on the 0, then the way that the envelope affects the stitches also kind of changed a little bit. So I thought that was an interesting thing to note. And so yeah, that's the difference between sort of transforming objects and editing their nodes, is that when you have edit nodes with an envelope, you're actually able to adjust the stitches and the outline with these shape points. And yeah, why don't I open up the density of this so that we can see a little bit more clearly what's happening. And one thing you can do, you can select more than just one of these shape points. You can select them by dragging a box around them. So see how I've selected 4 of them, and I could, move those 4 up or down as I wanted to, so thereby again changing the envelope itself. So you can really have fun and see how by playing with these points, how you can just about do anything to your stitching to give it, odd and unusual shapes and styles of stitching. So yeah, the more you learn to play with your envelopes, the more interesting and creative stitches you'll create. So there's still a little bit more I want to show about the enveloping and the enveloping tool, so I'll just reset myself and come right back. We're going to continue looking at creating and editing envelopes, and this time what I'd like to do is show you how to do the on direction and manual methods. So maybe what I'll do is just create a shape in step, and so I'll just go ahead and create basically any kind of shape. I'll draw something a little bit kind of wavy and squiggly looking. And then the idea is we'll try and see how these different styles of envelopes will affect our shape. So once I've drawn the shape, I'm just going to right click and choose to add an envelope. And we'll try on direction and see what we get. So this is sort of an automatic effect. You can see that it's created a complex style of envelope based upon the stitches of my design, and it basically got the kind of thread to contour. Now remember, I have envelope set on direction. This would be, a different effect if I had it set on stitches or if I had it set on outlines, but I had it set on direction, and so it didn't change the shape that I drew, just changed the stitching throughout the inside of it. Now I'm going to choose to delete that envelope and also demonstrate. So I'm back to my original object. The stitch angle will matter in this case. So if I change with edit nodes the direction of the fill to be a different style of direction, and then again I select it and choose to add an envelope, and once again we'll just allow the program to on direction create one, the envelope is changed and it's new based upon the new stitch angle that I had. So in this case it almost seems like it worked better. So you can see how allowing the software to on direction gives you a nice, result. Maybe what I'll do is select this and copy and paste it, and then I'll make a new envelope on it, and this time I'll generate the envelope myself. So we'll right click and choose to delete this envelope. So I'm back to, again, my original shape, and on this time I'm going to say add envelope, but I will choose the manual style, and now it's up to me to draw the points, and I can make as simple or complex of a shape if I want to. So for example, I'll just make kind of a one that goes, well, let's see here, from the top towards the bottom and kind of rounds a bit. Okay, so that's what I drew, and I'll right click, and so you can see what it's given us, almost like the shape of a globe, when you see the world on a map. But the idea is I drew it, and then the envelope is affected by how I did. So you can imagine when you start working with embroidery designs like clip art, how you can enhance them. And so I opened a couple of the clip arts that came with, I have one open here. This is a design that came, with the software, so it was just found in the creative drawing samples. And for example, now if I select this center area that's got, a step fill in there, and the envelope is on stitches. Now maybe I'll change it to be on directions, which remember will not change the shape of my fleur-de-lis, but will change the shape of the stitches inside. Now I'll add the envelope. And if I go with on direction, I get just almost a crazy result. And so I'm just going to, again, delete that envelope. And it's based on the stitch angle. So what I'll do is I'll just select that, choose the Edit Shape Node tool, and sort of searching for this angle. I can see the purple points are here for the angles. And so I'm just going to zoom in so that I can see them better and make it go sort of in a 90-degree stitch angle versus what it was, which was the sort of not the closest distance across. I made it go up and down. So the point is, let's see how that affects creating an envelope on direction for the same shape. See, now it's given a nice, interesting sort of contouring look to that thread, and so you can see how you can really influence your creative clip art. Why don't I try, I think I opened up, no, this is the one. Okay, so I'll say open, and open up this little frog. Yeah, so just simply selecting his tummy and right-clicking and saying Add Envelope, and then we'll go with on direction, so just allow it to create something. Now, this is a menu that comes up because the original designer has locked some of the stitches, has made stitch edits, which cause the objects to be locked. And it's basically telling me if I do this, I'm going to lose any of those stitch edits, and I'm fine with that. Go ahead and, we'll make our own changes as we like them. But I guess the point is I changed the tummy to look, a little bit more contouring with his body. Now, the back of his body might be a little bit complex of a shape for that style. We'll try it, Add Envelope. But I've tried this before, and I know that it's going to give us, a bit of the kind of weaving back and forth. And in here, where my envelope is twisting on itself, what happens is there actually becomes parts of the embroidery that just get a little messed up. So what I'll do, I'll just undo that, no problem, and show we could use, for example, to add a manual envelope. And it doesn't have to be that complex. So for example, I'll just put in a few sets of points for it to base an envelope on that can contour the stitching to look a little bit more unique. Now, it had some troubles with the shapes here, and so maybe I'll undo and try again, or I guess I could also delete that envelope, but we'll try again. Right click, Add Envelope. We'll go with the manual one, and maybe I'll try a different sort of angle for that and see how it turns out. So you never know, but the point is it's fun to try with a manual envelope on a clip art design like this to see how it's gonna. And oh, I understand why it's changing. So it's just a matter of changing from it's on outline, and I don't want it to change the outline of my shape. Should have caught that the first round. I need to change this to be on direction. So all I wanted to do is modify the direction of the stitches in the frog, and not so much the way that. Oh, and so the one thing I can see now is this is creating a layering issue. There's some underlay stitching that's showing. So I could either come in and change the style of underlay stitching, or what I could do is, so if I go with just edging versus netting, then that's going to clean that up, is what I'm saying. Or I could change the sequence of the design to be sure that these eyes came after this body, and therefore that would also. But yeah, so just kind of showing how you can play with the enveloping tools and get very unique and interesting results. Maybe one more time, I'm going to go open, and I'm going to select a design with some lettering. just to give you the idea that it's not just the step fill objects that can have an envelope applied to them. This is a lettering object, and what I'm going to do is right click and choose to add an envelope to the lettering. And maybe we'll just choose one of these complex ones and show that it'll quickly add an envelope shape to the word tender, and it just gives it a bit more of a unique look. It's kind of small, you don't see it. Maybe if I would have, let's select it and then say edit envelope. Maybe if I put a little bit more sort of warp to it, you could see it a little bit better. Or for that matter, you can edit the envelopes also. So let's select it and then go to that Edit Nodes tool. And now this is where you can really see how interesting this is. What if I wanted to just change the way the envelope was altogether? Maybe instead of being a bridge look, maybe I want it to be sort of the reverse of that, where I'm going to get the top of the word tender to be straight, but the bottom, I kind of want to pull it down to fit these, the space that's available. And you can see, because it's an envelope and there's 16 points, because I only move the bottom ones, it kind of makes the bottom parts of the letters look droopy. If I want to straighten them out a little bit, I can pull down the center set of these shape points, and that helps balance out the words a little bit. And again, you could pull down the top sides, and so really you can see how you could create almost any shape and any feeling for your lettering that you might want to. So it's fun to play with an envelope on a lettering object such as this to get new and interesting looks to them. So yeah, that's all of the videos that I wanted to record about, I guess, creating envelopes and modifying envelopes. So I hope you have fun playing and creating with envelopes to your embroidery objects. I'm going to include another couple of examples of creating envelopes, and this time what I'm going to do is create some shapes using the Creative Drawing software and then export them to Wings and apply the envelope. So what I'll do is I'm just going to start with, I'll create a perfect circle. So I'll take my ellipse tool, hold my control key down, and drag to make a circle along, one of the radial arms of my shape. So then I'm also going to maybe go ahead and create a rectangle shape, and I'll do two different sort of demonstrations of creating an envelope. Now, to make this interesting, I wanted to get some stylized fill for these. And so, for example, for the circle, I thought I would take and create kind of like a little circle pattern here. And you can see what it does. Now, those were pretty small. I'm going to go ahead and just adjust their size. So I'm just going to take control of that with the length. And now that's kind of too big. I don't need them that big, but maybe I'll go like 1 millimeter. Maybe even 1.5 millimeters. Yeah, that looks good to me. So I can just zoom out and show you what it's created. So a bunch of little circles in a pattern on my ball. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is apply to this one a little bit more of a diamond pattern. And so I think number 50 gives me kind of a little diamond. And notice when I go to that diamond, and because of the angles, they all kind of get cut off. To make this really work well, I'm just going to set the direction. So I'm just going to turn on directions here. And I'm just going to set the direction of those rows to be horizontal like this. And that should give me sort of the overall effect that I'm looking for. So, okay, before we go on to exporting it, I'm going to select them both. They're white fill with black outlines. And I'm just going to choose to not have an outline. And white fill's fine, but it's a little hard to see. Maybe I'll just make them a red fill and then go ahead and say File and Export to Editor. And so that'll bring up our Wings program and opens up this design in the Wings program. Now, if I want to see the stitches a little better, I can turn on the 3D preview and sort of hide the outline, the shapes behind them. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to select the ball first, or the circle. I guess they say ball because it's what I was thinking was to kind of give you the concept of a three-dimensional warp. And so I'm going to say add envelope, and the simple envelope of the circle with the value cranked up to give it that look of imagine a golf ball, okay? So what we're going to do is, now the warp is set on outline, so all that's going to do is adjust the sort of shape of the envelope. I want this to be on stitches. So now you get the idea that we've created a ball that has quite a three-dimensional pattern to it, didn't it? So yeah, that's one, I guess, example I wanted to show. And then another one, we'll just zoom in over top of these little diamonds and show, if I create, I'm just going to have it add an envelope to this. And then we'll just go with kind of a simple hourglass one. So the complex on the bottom, this shape here. And so it'll, again, it's set on outline. And so it's going to shape the outline but not change the stitches in the middle. So I'm going to change that to be on stitches to create the desired effect, which will get my stitches to kind of bend with my shape like this. Now, this is the real magic of it, because you can select this envelope and choose that Edit Nodes tool, and then you can play with these nodes to create new and interesting basically dimensions to your embroidery design, and see what's happening to the sort of lines that are in the middle, how they get distorted and sort of warp out like that based upon the lines that I'm entering in, or, because I've moved my envelope lines. So here we've created something that has like a bit of a rounded edged end to it. It could be a glass, or I guess anything you want. So another thing you can do is play with these inside shape point lines to give that three-dimensional kind of look to it. So if I take and pull them way down and out like this, look what it does to the way the style of the stitching. So it really stretches it out, and we could even stretch them out further. So I wanted to demonstrate not only applying an envelope to designs that we created in Wings, and even designs that we didn't create in Wings, like the clip art, but I wanted to show you how you can interact with your creative drawing software with all of the interesting styles of stitching that we have in there to create even new and interesting effects. So go ahead and have fun creating envelopes, and I hope you'll be amazed with the things that you can create.